it's your boy the gaming Trouge here, and yes, ladies and gentlemen, after probably what's been like a couple of months, I'm finally going to be actually doing this side project just so I can get some opinions out, just to kind of get some stuff out. And ladies and gentlemen, this is I guess the official first episode of Trouge Talks. We've done a couple of episodes in the past. We've done some other conversations about the game industry. This is basically when I feel like talking about the game industry or whatever have you, I will get on the mic and I will talk to you guys about it. I might do movie reviews as well with this title, with this brand. But at the moment, it's just gaming news podcasts, something similar to something like the Spawn Wave podcast. But it's just me, and it's just me rambling. So, yeah, let's just get straight into it because I have a couple of problems with people at the moment talking about the problems that could affect gaming. Now, here's the thing. As the title suggests, it's 2D games and 30 FPS, basically debating between these two. And these are like big nerd debates. And people like kind of going absolutely crazy thinking that this could be the downfall of gaming if it's not this, that, and the third. But I just got some stuff to say about that, so why don't I just get straight into it. So my whole thing with 2D versus 3D, let's start with the conversation there. So 2D versus 3D games, they both mean the exact same to me. I know that if you guys watch my classic Sonic reviews, or if you guys have seen any of my Sonic ranking videos, or whatever have you, I guess ranking top 5s, whatever. If you guys have seen any of my Sonic content, you guys know I prefer 3D Sonic games. I just prefer them because Sega has been throwing down 2D Sonic at us for years. Now, I don't hate 2D Sonic. I actually really like 2D Sonic. I think it's really fun games. I think they are what made Sonic who Sonic was to begin with. But like I said, Sega has been throwing down the 2D Sonic games for years at this point. But that doesn't mean I dislike 2D games. There's games like Metroid, the new Prince of Persia. There's so much other games out there on the market that I feel like that are going to be good. Or just stuff like Celeste and Hollow Knight that showed the industry, Shovel Knight, that have shown that this is like a good medium for games. It's not always about the 3D games. Now, but 2D games game priced at $60 or $60 US. People just need to shut up about that. Like, I'm gonna be very blunt and say people need to shut the heck up over the price point of a game. Cause like, honestly, $60 is what you will pay for a base game. And I guess now we have $70. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the $60 game that we've been accustomed to for over 2 decades, basically. Or I guess 1 decade, because I don't think the GameCube... I think GameCube was like $50 for GameCube games. What have you. It has always been $60 for new games since the birth of the internet, or the birth of the modern day internet. Most people have always had to pay $60 for games. Now, did indie games and change that with stuff like, I said, the aforementioned Hollow Knight or Shovel Knight? Probably, but they are also indie games. They are games that are made by like one or a few people. So I don't think it's super fair to judge 2D and 3D games like that because it just doesn't feel right, you know? And then like something like a big old like first party Mario or Metroid. A lot of Metroid talk lately. A lot of people talk about Metroid in the gaming sphere nowadays with the release of Metroid Dread at $60. That's selling like crazy. So people need to shut up and stop acting like, yo, this is like a big problem. Like, why does 2D games have to be lesser than 3D? They're the same. They're just video games at the end of the day. They can tell the same stories. They can tell the same like gameplays. You can take The Last of Us and make it into a 2D RPG like Final Fantasy, and it will still have the same impact, I feel like. But that's just me. But leave it to Player Essence, OJ, Player Essence, to try to talk about the problems that could be coming out with gameplay. We are going to be I guess, pseudo reacting to it. I know I watched all of this, but I'll be pausing to give my couple cents like I did with the Bayonetta situation. So, I guess a little bit more so with the Bayonetta situation because I knew more about what's happening this topic rather than Bayonetta, but we'll just keep going.
I love gaming, guys. Gaming has been something that I've been doing for 30 plus years at this point, but there is a big problem in the gaming industry, the gaming discourse, that can threaten everything and could be its downfall. But before we get into that and much more, please make sure you...
Okay, we're gonna go fast forward this. We don't need to have that.
Now people are even still questioning if games are worth $60. Now, what I'm talking about is the recently revealed Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown, Sonic Superstars, and of course, Metroid Dread that was back in 2021. All of these games have been receiving criticism online, discourse that...
But has it though? Maybe. Like, yeah, I guess because of the 2D versus 3D debate and the $60 price point, like, I guess that a lot of people do think that way. But honestly, at least in my circle of friends, a lot of people I associate with, a lot of people that I've seen in the gaming sphere, doesn't really talk about it. Only the people I see talk about this more is people like Player Essence, OJ, well, I guess OJ is Player Essence, but like Player Essence, Spawn Wave, and people like Nate the Hay and all that. Like, I see a lot of people on the more journalistic side of gaming compared to the average player. Like, the average player sees Metroid Dread and they're like, okay, this is going to be a fun game. They pop it in and they play it and it has a fun game. I'll tell you this right now, I convinced one of my dad's friends to go and play Metroid Dread when I was playing the demo of Dread back in 2021. If that's not, like, straight out, like, just telling you, yo, this is actually a good game, regardless of 2D and 3D, I don't know what it is.
It's not worth $60, and there is a problem. Now, there's another major problem that we're going to be dealing with, and that's the Starfield debate, which I have some interesting stuff to talk about there, so make sure you stick around for the full video. But let's get into this 2D thing first, because I discussed it back in 2021, and I thought that it was ridiculous that people were questioning if Metroid Dread is worth the $60 because of games like Hollow Knight or because of other high quality 2D games, maybe Cuphead, stuff like that. But you have to...
Wasn't Cuphead 60? At least when it came to Switch, it was definitely 60. Like, for a while. I know I had, like, a card, so I didn't actually pay for it. Like, I had, like, one of those Walmart cards for Christmas one year. So that's how I got it. But I feel like Cuphead was 60. And no one had a problem with it.
Realize that some of these new high-end 2D games that are coming out are actually 3D. They're 3D modeled, running on a 2D plane in terms of the gameplay.
Yeah.
But the models are actually 3D. A lot of the work that goes into it would be like a 3D game. Now, don't get me wrong. The complexity of a 2D game like a Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown or Sonic Superstars or Metroid Dread is not going to be quite up to the level of maybe something like Starfield or The Legend of Zelda: Tears of the Kingdom when it comes down to it. However, value is not based off of the development cost. It's based off of what the game gives you personally.
Thank you, OJ. This is something good. This is something good. Definitely, the development cost does not, like, the average gamer is not going to know diddly squat about the industry. The main people that are going to be interested in it is the people that are researching it, the people that are reviewing it, the YouTubers. I don't even want to say YouTubers because there's even some YouTubers that don't even care. It's really all this boils down to is just when it comes down to people like you and me that are watching this podcast right now, that is listening to this podcast right now, that is just like that we know the gaming sphere pretty darn well, and so
that is the biggest thing. Now, if 3D equals okay, $60 or $70 for you, okay, that's fine. But there's been a lot of 3D games that are bad. So therefore, that is invalid in my opinion.
But there's also been a lot of 2D games that have been bad. They have bring up Sonic 4 Episode 1. Like, there we go. Like, that is a 2D game that's bad. Need I bring up, like, I personally like it, but it's not really, like, looked upon fondly with a lot of people, but Super Mario Bros. 2. Not a lot of people liked 2 over 1. A lot of people go 1, 3, and then World. I mean, heck, even Super Mario Maker does it like that. But, yeah, like, you can't, like, it's if you're judging a game based off its price range, because if it's 2D and 3D, and like 2D games can't compare to the 3D games, there's been a lot of bad 2D games, and there's been a lot of bad 3D games. It's about the quality of the game, though.
Everybody here has played a 3D game that is not worth the price. So you can't just quite equate 3D equals full price. Not 3D doesn't equal full price, because there's been a lot of games obviously that aren't that good that are 3D. So you have to look at it in more than just one way. Can that be a factor for some people? Absolutely. You don't want to see every single game in 2D, so I understand that from that perspective.
It's a balancing act. It's a balancing act, because like it depends on what you're in the mood for to play. There is a good chunk of 3D games that are still being made. But when like 2 or 3 really good big 2D games get announced, like Prince of Persia, Metroid Dread, Sonic Superstars, a lot of people are going to be like, "Oh, well, that's a side game. That doesn't matter because it's not the big 3D game." But you gotta remember, video games are video games at the end of the day. But that's all I really have to say about the 2D side of things. Like, basically, if you like a game, you should be able to tell people, yo, I like this game, regardless of 2D or 3D. There's a lot of different genres of games out there. There's going to be games for everybody. Saying that a 2D $60 game is going to destroy the industry, like, because people are not going to buy it, I feel like is a little bit dramatic. But I guess that we get now into the real meat and potatoes of this, and that is the 30 to 60 frames per second, which I find is completely stupid. I hate debating this topic, because I feel like at the end of the day, if the game is fun, then frame rate does not matter. Frame rate does not matter in the grand scheme of things. The general audience and the people that are going to be playing these games don't give a flying crap over frame rate. But let's see what OJ has to say.
That we're going to have here, something that I feel is a major problem as well, is the 30 frames per second debate. This is something that I've avoided really talking about in a dedicated video.
Same here.
I think that we need to actually discuss this, because recently we've got the big reveal trailer or re-reveal trailer for Starfield. We've got
I did end up watching this after my reaction.
Gameplay and everything, and the news came out. Todd Howard confirmed it to IGN that the game will be at 30 frames per second. Now, this will not be the first or the last time, and we've had debates with this before in the past. Tears of the Kingdom, that was a big 30 frames per second debate, resolution debate.
Found it stupid there too.
That's went on before with Redfall as a shooter and all of that. And I think that it's going to wildly vary based off the game, right? If a game is a smaller end game, like even like a Metroid Dread style or like a Sonic Superstars, yeah, you would expect stuff like that, right? With a 2D on a plane, right? With 3D model graphics, but you'd expect that to be 60 frames per second, right? Or even like a sports game or a racing game. But when it comes to something like Starfield, this is a massive, huge, galactic, literally galactic RPG that's slower paced, you know, that's not really a Twitch shooter like a Doom or a Wolfenstein or something like that in the modern age. So the fact that it has all of these locations, all of these areas, all of these mechanics, all of these physics, all of that takes a toll on the CPU, takes a toll on the system. And this 60 frames per second versus 30 frames per second, I think it stifles what a developer is trying to do for the vision of their game. Now,
it does. Like, people don't understand when the nerds start talking about freaking frame rate, and that's like has to be the end all be all thing. Like, why are we talking about that? Like, why is this such a big deal in the grand scheme of things? Why is frame rate the killer feature? Like, okay, look, we do want games to run good. then make sure your game is running good. Now, the thing is with Starfield, which the gameplay footage we did see of it and everything like that, with it being at 30, it looks good. It looks like a good, solid game. I think, if I remember correctly, games like Fallout were that frame rate too. Correct me if I'm wrong. But at least on the 360 for those Fallout games, I feel like you don't really have to care about. When did frame rate decide to like take full front of every single conversation with games? Like if you go back to the 360 era, no one talked about frame rate. And I just personally find it like super like jarring that this generation is frame rate this, 60 frames per second this, $60 games. Why is all this like coming into play when no one cared about this 10 years ago? No one was talking about frame rates and everything like this. This was a concept that like, okay, if you're making the game, you probably should know all this type of info. But why is now a problem with the general public? Why does the general public care this deeply if a game is 30 or 60 frames per second? Most people are not going to know the difference, like I said before. So why in God's green earth is people complaining this hard about frame rates? Like, okay, like OJ said, it's like when you think of a game like a fast-paced shooter like Splitgate, Doom, Halo, Wolfenstein, all this other games that are like big old like first-person shooters. Yes, you probably want it to be smoother. You probably want them to be 30. Heck, the gameplay I've seen of Redfall, like the actual like streamer games I've seen of Redfall, it's not bad. People were like crapping on the game, saying it was the worst game of 2023. I don't know if it's a difference between watching someone play it and actually playing it, but it doesn't look that much different from a game like Left 4 Dead to me. And that game is 60 frames per second. And a lot of people are like, oh, that's like the biggest problem is that it's only 30. I'm like, oh, shut up. Shut the heck up, bro. Like, you guys don't need to keep complaining about 30 and 60 frames per second. Because, like I said, general audiences, the people that are going to pick up your games and on your PS5s, the people that are buying PS5s to have the Fortnite box, are not going to care about frame rate.
They wanted to make a 60 frames per second mode and you can play it in that mode, but it's all choppy, it's uneven, there's a lot of pop-in. I think it creates a problem. You just spent a lot of time on a mode that people probably aren't going to want to play, considering how bad it would look or the issues that it would have. So if you want to make a certain style of game, you shouldn't be limited to that because you're afraid of a backlash of it has to be 60 frames per second, 60 frames per second or nothing. And that's something that I've talked about before. Listen, we'd all love to have it in a bazillion frames per second, right? Sign me up. The best that you can get it there. But sometimes it's not always feasible based on the scope and scale of your game. Sometimes you can't really get it done because it's not going to feel great to play because of the unevenness, because you can't lock it down. Sometimes you have so many physics, mechanics, different things in your games, like Tears of the Kingdom, for example, to where it's going to be very difficult to hit that 60 frames per second consistently.
And can I just bring up the fact that people are freaking out that the fact that if you use Ultra Hand in one area of the game just drops frames? Like, it's not even that big of a deal. Like, holy cow, like, people are still telling this game is super great and everything, but, like, the frame rate people were like, oh my gosh, we gotta fix this, we gotta, like, boost the internal clock and the speed of the system on a mod Switch, and then we gotta make sure that it's, like, super fixed, and 60 FPS is the standard. But what are you talking about? The people that are buying this game are not going to care about frame rate. They probably don't even care. They're going to enjoy the game regardless. Again, and this is coming from a guy that played Jump Force, 100% Jump Force, on Switch. The worst performing platform to play the game on. And I think it's still a fun experience because it doesn't matter about frame rate. Sonic Frontiers also had the same type of conversation. Well, people are like, don't buy the Switch version. It's not going to run great. even though it runs perfectly fine. It's the people that care super deeply about frame rates, that if they see one chug, it's going to mess up. Now, I know I've brought up in the past, especially if I'm streaming, that I don't like to share screen my games whether I'm in a Discord call, but that's because it's the window itself like slows down. It uses up more RAM. So that's the only type of frame rate I actually care about when it comes down to anything. It's making sure my streams and everything is working. By the way, shout out to my Twitch stream. But overall, I would like to personally say that regardless of frame rate, regardless of all this, it's not going to affect everything in this bigger picture. I think people are blowing this way too much out of proportion, and seeing this made me really stress about the game industry, which in actuality, we don't really need to worry about the game industry like that. Like, we would love to see games from other companies come out. We'd like to be able to, like, see, like, the technology evolve. But at this moment, because of this generation we're in, I feel like we need to take a step back, like, us as content creators, take a step back and, like, give these people the amount of time that they need. We don't need to push and rush out games. We don't need to have people, like, go and, like, worry about 60 and 30. If they can get a game working, I don't think it's a big problem for people to go and, like, scream out, oh, this game's only at 30 frames per second. We don't need to talk about this. That's not it. Shout out to player Essence. I'll leave his video fairly down in the description below so you guys can watch the full video. But thank you guys so very much for watching. Have yourselves a fantastic night. And as always, keep gaming. Special thanks to Cat Chat for sponsoring me on Patreon. If you guys want to support me on Patreon, link is in the description down below.